only Louisa Harding joining us live on the party line to talk about her latest in just incomprehensibly long string of books, Knits from an English Rose. Welcome, welcome, Louisa. And I was thinking, I think when we first started doing these live events, I think you were actually our first guest.
Oh, was
And
I?
I think you were. It was maybe 4 years ago. I think you actually were our very first guest. So,
What an honor to be back.
well, it's an honor for me to have you back. I'm so tickled that you are visiting us again from all the way from the mother country for us here in the States, and with such a lovely new book. And I know
Thank
you
you.
have so many fans, both for your patterns and for your yarns here on this side of the Atlantic Ocean. And you can see people are saying they're so excited to meet you and they love your books. And it's an honor to have you here. And I know here, and Candy is saying this shawl on this cover is so beautiful, and it's so Louisa Harding. I mean, you can look at it, and it's a Louisa Harding design. It's just quintessential Louisa Harding. I have to say, we are so crazy over here right now for this kind of soft feminine soft feminine design. Yeah, Moose Skirts is currently, she told us before we started, she's currently baking pumpkin bread. And I asked her if she was on her way to my cabin up here in the mountains with a fresh loaf. And she said she was on her way, but she's offering to swap a loaf of pumpkin bread for a book, which I might be able to work something out with you
Oh,
for that. That we're
sounds delicious.
it does, doesn't it? We're so crazy, 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 crazy here in the States for Downton Abbey and that whole look, that soft British feminine look. And when I got the advanced copy of this book, as I was going through this book, I thought, oh my gosh, I could see Lady Sybil, who was my favorite character, who unfortunately is no longer with us. I could see her wearing that, or I could see Lady Mary wearing this, or it's so very it's so very
Quintessentially English, really, isn't it?
it really is. And like Savannah Gale says, styles that wear forever, because obviously the show is set in a very different time period, but those kind of classic styles just last forever. These are pieces that you could wear 200 years ago, or you'll be able to wear 100 years from now. It isn't, that you'll just reach for again and again and again and again and again. So it's
I think very often, a lot of my designs are sort of seen as, I like to think of them as heirloom pieces, pieces that you knit that will stay with you forever. Something that you put the time and effort into it, so you want it to be beautiful and to last. And be timeless and classic, and I think that's why I make them as pretty as I do. I mean, I'm very much influenced by the clothes, British clothes from the Victorian era right through to 1950s, 60s. I think there's an edge for everybody there to take. I think it's about the detailing. That's what makes things classic and timeless.
yeah. So let's take a peek at the book. I'm sure people want to see what kind of treat they're in for with the projects in the book. So let me get us started here. If I can get us back up to the top here. So come on, computer. There we go.
There you go.
Oh, it's very slow today. I don't know why. I intentionally did not stream anything today, but that's the joy of having internet connection up in the mountains. So You may have to do it the slower way. Let's see if it'll start. But
Seems to
this
be working my end.
oh, there you go. Well, this cover, yeah, this cover piece is just really lovely, and the color of this yarn. Louisa, what is this knit with? This is really gorgeous.
This is knit with Oriel, which is an alpaca yarn with a tiny filament of gold through it, and I've knitted it on slightly larger needle than is suggested on the Hank label, just to ensure that the yarn, when it's when it's knitted up, does have that beautiful drape. And I think that very often people tend to go with the gauge that's actually on the Hank label or the Ball label. And I find very often, if I'm wanting a drapey fabric, if you knit it on a larger needle than suggested, that adds to that elegance. But this is one of those pieces that when I'm designing, I actually drew an image of what the shawl would look like, and then I had to work out how I could actually make it and knit it with the edging and things, because the edging itself is quite a feat to work out in my head how to do it, because it's knitted in one piece and you cast on a few number of stitches and then increase out, and so there's like a scallop edge. So it was one of those things that I drew but had no idea how I was going to actually work it out until I started knitting.
Yeah, and Connie agrees. She loves this color as well. And yeah, and Mooskers was saying it was like it's really easy to get tied up with what the label is telling you to do as opposed to, what works really best for the project. And Candy says, yeah, the drape on this is gorgeous, and it just looks really soft and lovely. So yeah, and
And
this
it is an absolutely beautiful yarn. It really is. It just lends itself to these really beautiful drapey pieces.
Connie wants to know if you have a favorite knitting needle that you like to use.
I love this question because I think people assume that I would have the most beautiful set of needles, in all colors and shapes and lots of needles. But usually it's a case of finding a pair that match.
You mean where you have two
Uh,
of the
I,
same
I'm
size?
absolutely. And that doesn't always the case. I have been known to compensate for not being able to find a knitting needle.
Oh, how
I
funny.
think it's one of those things that as as somebody who does a job all the time, I never think about my own tools. I have, what I work with, and I never update anything. So if something gets splintered, I'll just sand it down on the tip or something. I prefer using bamboo needles to anything else, I have to say. And I've only just come round to knitting in the round as well.
Yeah, Candy said one time our friends took up a collection to get her matching needles, which I think is really funny. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no,
it's
I need to get myself a decent set, I have to say. Then I'd be able to answer the question properly.
yeah. I think maybe you can put that on your list for Santa this year, right?
Yeah, I unfortunately nobody else in my house would have a clue what I was talking about though.
Oh, funny. Well, this is really pretty. I love that kind of shell detail on the front. Tell us about this project.
Well, I love working with lace, especially lace patterns that the stitch structure creates undulating lines. So this particular pattern is like a leaf pattern, and I've knitted it several times in garment shapes and created like a dip in the knitting or an edging in the knitting, or used it all around. But in this particular pattern, I love the way that you can actually sort of use the idea as the front of a purse, and then I've compensated to get a straight line at the top of the fold for the purse by decreasing stitches within that. And I think this pattern probably has only worked over 40 or so stitches. I've used a beaded yarn and a non-beaded yarn, but the same type of yarn together to create a bulky yarn. and so it's worked over not very many stitches at all. And so I was able to play about and get the shaping and the correction at the top to allow for that undulation for the flap at the front.
Yeah, so and Savannah Gal was asking, so this is it was one strand of the gray silken wool and one of the grays hand beaded, right? Is what you made this with.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. So you're using one of the very expensive yarns with a not so expensive yarn to bulk it up, but you still get that element of the beads coming through on the pattern.
Yeah, and what's really nice is then you don't have to hand bead the yarn. So, which is
Absolutely.
far less work, which is nice. Far less work. Less work is good, especially if you're in a hurry because you're making gifts, which we're at that time of year where we're kind of, you know, if we're just starting, we're a little, we're looking for things that we can spend less time thinking about.
You can
And
do quickly.
yeah, exactly. Now, this to me was so 1940s when I saw this. It's so pretty. This Bet Bow Beret. Tell us about this project. Yeah, we're getting lots of
Well,
ahs
this
and love it's on this. It's just so what a beautiful design.
well, I have this beautiful yarn, and in the book there's a back view of the hat as well, of the beret, and the yarn is called Amatola, and this is just a one ball project, and the yarn is self gradating. It gradates in shades, but it's not tonal. They kind of go into different shades throughout, and I love the way that this particular yarn gradates in color through the patterning. So I've kept the actual pattern very simple. It's just a simple eyelet stripe with shaping in the crown and moss stitch, and I think, or seed stitch as you guys call it. And so it's a combination of the yarn and a really simple pattern, and the self gradating yarn working in this particular pattern. And as I say, it's a one ball project. So again, quick, quick knit.
Well, yeah, and we love that. And it's so lovely. And yeah, Mooskers is saying she's seeing the Titanic. I mean, you can see this girl standing at the railing on the Titanic. I get it. It's so pretty.
Yeah, somebody's just made a comment about making things look more difficult than they are. I love that too. The
Yeah.
yarn's done all the work in this project.
We love that. And you get credit for that when you give it to somebody and they think you're a genius. And
Absolutely.
the yarn did all the work. You don't have to tell them. You don't they'll just think you're a genius, which is okay. So, yeah, I agree that
Absolutely.
the bow is just adds that little something
I think
special.
it's as I said slightly earlier, for me, turning things from something ordinary into a classic or into something timeless is adding that detail. So the bow is the detail here. Without that, it would just be a very simple beret. But the bow just, it just makes it slightly different.
Yeah, this would be beautiful on my daughter-in-law. She would love this. Maybe she'll get one for Christmas. We'll see if she's been good. If she's been naughty or if she's been
Yeah, and
nice.
the yarn comes in lots of the yarn comes in lots of shades. So again, you can choose something to suit each individual.
Yeah, so pretty. So, and this is so classic Downton Abbey to me when I saw this. It's and of course the girl's hair swept up like that is just, the styling is very Downton Abbey. It's just so pretty. Now this is also your beaded yarn, right?
That's right, and this is just a one hank project.
Ah, we
So
love those.
certainly for the festive season, it's a great way to just add to a cardigan, really simple cardigan or sweater, or even here I've put it over a chiffon shirt, and the contrast of the weights of the fabric and the yarn and how it sits, and because it's beaded, this yarn, it sits beautifully on the neck. It's like a piece of jewelry.
Really, really lovely. Yeah, Savannah Gal was saying she loves this color. It looks so rich. which I agree.
Yeah.
And you can see that it drapes so nicely. It how it sits on her neck. And yeah, Savannah Gal says it's a small project, but it makes such an impact. Moskers asks, could it be made longer?
You could make it longer. Obviously, that turns it into more than a one ball project. But if you wanted to add length, you could do two pattern repeats before you started the decreases and just change various elements of it. Obviously, if you wanted to knit more of a collar, you could take it from where you do your decreases and then add some ribbon, make it longer that way.
Yeah. And then you could also use the plain grace without the beading if you wanted to just use the beading on the edge too and make it a less expensive project, right?
Yep, and if you did want to make it bigger, you could knit one end of the grace and one end of the hand beaded, and that would automatically make it a bigger project as well by taking the yarn up to a bulky.
There you go. So you got options there, Mooskers. It's always nice to have options. We
I
love
have to
that.
say also we work with brilliant hair and makeup girls, and they really do, they just take it on board doing the hair and makeup to make the images look so beautiful.
Yeah, and they definitely captured that vintage kind of, you know, English
Feel.
girl. Yeah, absolutely. That and it's that timeless quality. They definitely got it. Oh, we got an OMG on these wristlets, I think. Which I have to say I was so tickled when I saw, and I think it must have been in Vogue Knitting. I think there was an ad. Oh, I'm sure it was. I actually even remember what it was because it was on the cover of a pattern book that came out that you did, and I even remember what the pattern was because it was like a gray capelet that with this new yarn that you did with this the Louisa yarn with that's the fur yarn,
Yeah.
and I thought, oh, thank God, somebody finally came out with a fur-like yarn that actually looks like real fur and not like something that you would put like on a children's Halloween costume. Because I've missed that. It's been a very, very long time since that's been available here in the United States. And this is so beautiful. Tell us about this.
Oh, the Lutzia yarn it's a viscose fur-like yarn, and its core yarn or core fiber is viscose, and I think that's what changes the element. And I love these little sort of fingerless mittens here, which again are so simple to knit and then just edged in the fur. Again, it's just changing the perception into a classic, really. With thinking these particular mittens remind me of driving gloves. I don't know. I just have this idea of you know a beautiful lady in a drop top convertible car driving somewhere lovely for the weekend or for a picnic. I don't know, each picture triggers an imagination of a story, doesn't it?
It does. And for those of us on this side of the ocean, what I really love is the name of these are the Mabel Cheeky Mittens, which we don't use the word cheeky here, but it certainly brings to mind it certainly brings to mind a lot of things. So, but it's just yeah, it's just there's just that little bit of trim on them really, and I think that's what you've been talking about is how it's that little bit of detail takes something that's simple or that would be like a everyday item and makes it so special, like the
And
bow.
unique to
Yeah,
you as well.
yeah,
Absolutely, each of
absolutely.
those points. And the thing is, you can take the elements or from say from these mittens, and you could convert those and put those as the trimming on the beret. It, just taking those elements and thinking about the finishing of something.
Yeah, so pretty. So I think I want those for myself. So, and and a girl can never have too many bags. It's bags and shoes, right? The two things.
Absolutely.
And since knitting shoes is a kind of a problem, since they're really not good on the wear and tear on the concrete, is so that leaves us with bags. We did have the slipper book, that's true, but you really can't wear them on concrete in the snow. So there's some limitation on knitting shoes. So that just leaves us with bags, right? So and and nobody does bags. I'm sorry, like Louisa does them. That's just the truth. It's just the truth. So this is really pretty. So tell us about this bag, Louisa.
Okay, so this bag starts off with I've used three shades of a yarn called Akiko, which is an alpaca and merino mix, and it's beautifully soft. But as a single yarn, the it wouldn't have enough guts to hold it together as a purse, as a bag, and so I've used it double. And what I've done is with the three colors, I've interspersed them. So I've used a herringbone stitch to start with, and the bag is cast on and knitted from the top down. So you start off and you knit a herringbone woven knitted stitch, if you can say a woven knitted stitch, which is then changed into a moss gradating moss stitch, and then it's all engineered underneath with with decreases to actually shape like a rectangle at the bottom, and then you cast the stitches off. So there's actually no sewing involved in the construction of this purse at
Oh, we
all.
love no sewing.
We like I've only just come to know sewing, so but I think the other thing is I found these beautiful purse handles online, and I think again that really makes a difference. In a way, it's one of those things. I found the purse handles, and then what kind of purse can I design to go with this? And then you've got the details of each of the little flowers that's knitted that go just below that ridge, the herringbone ridge, and it's about putting all the things together. And when I can remember when I was actually sewing the flowers on, and I didn't want them to, alternate pink, purple, wine, pink, purple, wine. So I kind of mix them up so that they're not uniform. And I think that's one of the things about when you come to designing things and putting things together is just to mix it up slightly, go a little off piste.
Oh, you mean so I have to get over my whole thing about symmetry.
Absolutely.
Oh,
It's really hard to make yourself do it, but it just changes things up. It draws the eye to different things.
yeah, 56 years of that. It's that's going to be a hard habit to break. But you know what? But for you, I'm going to do it because you told me I should. So that's going to be my New Year's resolution. Is
Okay, I
I'm
want
going to get
pixie.
over my addiction to symmetry. All right. Ooh, that's going to be tough. I might have to be sedated. We'll see how that goes. So it's going to be tough. So there are some more garmenty things in here, although there really aren't like fitted. You have to really worry about sleeve length and bust fitting kind of things. They're really more forgiving items, I
Yes.
think, in the book. And this is one of those. So tell us about this lovely lacy piece here. Oh, this is
So
getting ooze. Ooze.
this is
Ooh.
a capelet that with a very very simple lace stitch, and then it has decreasing reverse stocking stitch panels in it. So the capelet is knitted in the round first of all, and then decreased around the yoke. And then the sleeves are picked up and then again knitted in the round and knitted down. So you can change the length of the sleeves if you wanted to, depending on. And it actually came about because I don't know, with capelets and things, sometimes they can slip and move around. And I've just out of interest, I put some sleeves on one, knitted the sleeves down, and it became a far more comfortable garment to wear. And I thought, oh, this is a good idea. So that's how this kind of came about, really. And I think also it means that you can wear it with so many different things underneath as well. but still feel like you're tucked in.
Yeah, because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to kind of fly around or go up at the back, and so it's become a very versatile piece, and I'm quite pleased with myself that I put sleeves on this.
Yeah, and I think somebody asked about this. It's actually a one size garment. The circumference at the hem is 61 inches or 55 centimeters, and the circumference at the shoulder is 62 centimeters. Oh, that this actually can't translate. This is not, or 24 and a half inches. I think that must be 155 centimeters. The length is about 14 inches.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
I mean,
the
there's plenty of scope in there. As I say, it's a very simple lace pattern, and if somebody wanted to make it larger, they would just add one or two extra pattern repeats. And the way that the pattern is worded, each pattern repeat will be written separately, and then you do it so many times. So you would just cast on the extra number of stitches per pattern repeat and do exactly the same thing, but just add in some extra width.
yeah, and then the stitches and then the sleeves are just picked up and knitted
Yep,
down.
and afterwards and knitted down.
How clever. Okay. And that means less finishing, which is always a good thing.
Yep.
And then this is I posted four pictures on my Facebook page to ask people, what they if they had a favorite. This one got much love. And I think this is one of those pieces that you would cry if you ever lost the scarf. It's so beautiful. And so tell us about this.
Thank you. Again, I like to take ideas of stitch patterns and then turn them on their heads, really. I love playing with the idea of lace. And this particular pattern, I've used the actual increases to create this sort of edging. And I very much, sometimes people say, oh, how do you start designing? Do you start with the yarn, or do you start with the pattern, or do you start with the drawing? And as I said earlier, something may start with the drawing, as it did with the Carrie shawl, whereas this one started off with actually sitting down with a lace pattern and casting on so many stitches, and then engineering the scarf pattern to how the increases were working, and then how I could decrease, and changing the size of the bobbles on the fern pattern, because this is one of those sort of very ancient lace edging patterns that people would have knitted for a tablecloth or at the bottom of something and added to, but I wanted to make it a bit more modern by putting this pointed edging on the side, which I've done in garter stitch. So just playing about with, playing on the needles. It probably took 3 or 4 attempts to get to the finished sort of stitch structure that I wanted to get the decreasing right for the edging.
Yeah, this is really getting so much love in the room, and Savannah Gal was saying that she just really loves the color, and Roxy said the edging on this scarf really makes this special, and that she loves it. And this, I mean, I think that if you came to the U.S. Next winter and walked around, you probably see this scarf on a lot of people, because I think this is going to show up on a lot of people this year. And this, I just fell in love with this because I think this shows your new that Lucia yarn off to its just absolute best advantage.
This really is Downton Abbey, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's just perfection. And with that silk ribbon, it's just beautiful.
I think the thing with adding the ribbons is making sure that they're sort of as wide and as opulent as possible. I think that just adds to the sort of ambience of the image. And this is just a 2 ball project with the Lucia, but it just looks, so elegant and so simple to knit. Really, very very easy. This is a couple of hours tops.
Yeah, that's my kind of holiday gift knitting. And it just looks so luxurious. It's just so pretty.
I think the photograph is absolutely beautiful as well, and with that little bit of light catching the back, it's just so evocative, isn't it, of a certain time and place.
Yeah, it really is. So very, very pretty. And here's another project using yeah, and no yeah, and Savannah Gal says, and no animals were harmed in the making of the garment, which is even better. It's almost dangerous to wear real fur in this country, even if you
Yes.
even if you aren't an animal lover, which I am, but it's almost dangerous to wear fur in this country. So but this is another project that shows really kind of the depth of color and kind of the mix of textures, which really love. Tell us about this project.
But this is one of those very, very simple projects. The idea of using just one ball of the Lucia yarn, the fur yarn, but in a kind of quick and easy project. So you cast on, again, it's using the Grace yarn double, so you're making it into a bulky weight so it will work with the Lucia. And it's just a very simple construction. Cast on, I think there's maybe a little picot edge and some garter stitch and an eyelet row, which then turns into where the row that you thread the ribbon through to make the closure, and then the bag is knitted in the round and then just cast off together at the bottom. Again, no seaming at all, and I'm sure this probably the most time consuming thing about this particular project was probably threading the ribbon handles through and making sure that they were the same length.
Yeah, I know a couple of people who might be getting this for Christmas gifts as I get
And wouldn't it be cute if it was lined with a really bright silk inside?
which
Just
is always a nice
fabulous.
surprise when people open up a bag and there's something really fun inside. I always love that. I always line my bags with something fun inside,
That's
fun
right.
and unexpected. So, yeah,
Yeah.
a little surprise. It's like a teacup where there's when you get to the bottom and there's something looking at you when you get there. I love cups like that. A little bit of a surprise. And I think this is probably going to be very popular in here in the US, especially in the southern part. People think that we don't need this kind of stuff down in the southern US, but we have air conditioning down here in the summer. So and we need these kind of projects. So tell us about this. Tell us about this beautiful little capelet.
I think for me, the challenge of this particular capelet was I had this idea to do this Paisley shawl, and there's a history of Paisley shawls in the UK, and I'm not sure whether people are familiar with that, and very much from the Jane Austen time. So back in the early 17th century, 18th century, there were Paisley shawls that came out, were woven and created by amazing artisans in India, and then they were taken over to actually Paisley is a place in Scotland, and they began to produce the woven Paisley shawl. And Paisley is actually the shape, and it's based on the shape of a mango. And for me, the idea behind creating a Paisley shawl in knitting was from my perspective as the designer in how to create that shape with the lace patterning. And this is again one of those patterns that I worked on and probably took me several different times to actually get the patterning exactly how I wanted it with the decreases and the increases, and playing around with actually getting that paisley shape in the knitting. So for me, I like to stretch myself sometimes when I'm designing, and that this is one of those times where I'm actually drawing out on graph paper the paisley shape, and then trying to put the eyelets on and work out which is the best way to actually shape them. So I love challenging sort
Yeah,
of knitting, really.
yeah, this and it's just it's so pretty and and Juanita says she loves the pattern. The color is perfect, which I agree. And Connie wants to know, does it really
Yeah.
button or is that just a faux? Is that a faux closing?
Oh no, it really buttons. What I tend to do with a lot of patterns is you can see there's an eyelet edging that's actually on the side of the shawl. And I use the eyelets in the edging as the buttonholes. So you could button it all the way down if you wanted to, or just button it higher up. You can choose where you want to put the buttons because the eyelets in the edging actually become the buttonholes.
Very clever. Very clever. So pretty. What a lovely photograph, too. She looks like she's at a garden
Yes,
party.
yes.
Which, of
Well,
course,
we
all
actually
English girls.
photograph.
Aren't all English girls spending their summers at garden parties? Isn't that where they all go?
Absolutely. We actually photographed it in the grounds of a local big house called Cannon Hall, and they have in the grounds, and some of the other pictures from the book you can see in more detail. They actually have what they call a folly, and that's built like an ancient ruin. It never was a ruin, but back in the Victorian age, if you had lots of money, then you would have a ruin built in your garden and they call it the fairy tale garden. So it was a perfect place to actually go and photograph.
Oh, fun. How much fun is
Although we
that?
did photograph some of the pictures, we photographed it in two halves, and the first half we photographed in March in absolute freezing conditions. The poor girl had got a hot water bottle stuffed down the back of her tights to try and keep her warm.
Well, that was pretty game of her.
Absolutely, and they have to change outside in the freezing cold.
Oh no.
But no, we got some beautiful pictures though.
Oh, good. All right. So I think we're done. If I can just get this to stop. Okay. Now off to so let's talk about this project for people who are not familiar with it. Louisa is raising money for the Macmillan Cancer Support Group, which if you go to louisaharding.co.uk, there's a link to it here. And Louisa, tell us about the Himalayan hiking hats project.
Okay. Some of you may have heard about this particular project, and the picture that's actually up on screen at the moment is actually a photograph that I took from the top of a hill called Tara Top. I actually did the hike last year. The Himalayan hiking hats came about. My husband was diagnosed in 2011 with lymphoma, blood cancer, and was treated with chemotherapy and was very poorly. And he was looked after. A lot of the support that we had was through the Macmillan Cancer Research and Support charity. And as a way of giving back, I went onto their website, and they do lots of different fundraising trips and things. And one of the trips was to do a trek to the Himalayas, to go to Nepal, which I actually did last November. It's actually a year since I went, and the trek was for 6 days. And I decided, as part of my fundraising, I would do a collection of hat patterns, so if people could donate to my trek fund, because the trek, to actually do it, they ask you to raise at least £3,400. So I needed to raise that sort of money. Stephen, my husband, who is thankfully, fingers crossed and everything, brilliant now. He's on 6 monthly checkups, so he's doing very well. And we donated £1,000, which is the cost of the trip, and then on top of that, obviously, I'd got to raise the rest of the money. So I came up with this idea to do some hat patterns which people could download for a donation through just giving to the Himalayan hiking hats to Macmillan Cancer Research. And so that's what this really has been about. There are 7 patterns. The final pattern I actually knitted on my trek, and if people go on to the last pattern, which is the cyclist pattern, there's actually a PDF with images showing me knitting on the trek and finishing off, and then this most beautiful Nepali girl actually wearing the finished hat. And there's also one of me looking rather Julie Andrews at the top of a mountain with the hat on as well. But that's how this came about. And actually, for those of you who can see the image here, the third picture from the left, there's a pattern with 4 hats on, and actually Stephen, my husband, is modeling the one of the hats there. He's
So
the
now,
bearded one.
and there are links here to Just Giving and also to Ravelry. But if you go to the Just Giving one here, you'll see this is where you can go because you can download the patterns for free.
And not make a donation. Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
honesty box, really.
But then you can go over